Welcome back. Now, here we stopped at this point, and I told us that this is not a secure approach, right? Because we've turned on, public access. Of course, we are restricting access to only the objects inside of our bucket, but that is still not a very secure, all right, approach. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to delete this policy, all right? So let's delete the policy. So delete that policy. And here, I'm going to edit this also and turn, all right, and, enable this feature to basically ensure that my bucket is not in any way accessible, all right? Now, I have blocked public access, and of course, if I refresh, it's going to go back to 403 forbidden. Okay, now I'm also going to go back to properties, and I'm going to edit the static website hosting. I'm going to disable that as well, and I'm going to say save changes. Now, what I want to do now is basically that all of these files that I have here, I want to serve them through CloudFront. Okay, that is what I want to do. Okay, so instead of using, turning on, all right, turning off the public access, using bucket policy and all of that, I want to basically make sure that my bucket stays private, and then I can use CloudFront to basically access and serve, all right, the content, all right, that I have inside of my bucket. Okay, that is basically what I want us to look at. So here, I'm going to go to CloudFront, all right, another service on AWS. And by the way, CloudFront is actually what you call a content delivery, all right, network, all right, content delivery, all right, kind of service, okay, or content delivery network. Now, what is content delivery network? Content delivery network basically is a way to bring your service or maybe your application or your website closer, all right, to your customers, right? You have customers in different regions. For example, if you have customers, let's say you have some of them in the US, you have some of them in Europe, you have some of them in Africa, all right? And you want them to be able to access your service, all right, in a way that is fast, all right, and of course with reduced latency. What you want to do is to enable CloudFront for your application, basically. Now, what CloudFront basically does for us is that it leverages what you call Amazon's edge locations, right? Which means Amazon has, different edge locations in different regions, all right, of the world. So what it does is that the platform actually uses a caching system that the moment somebody accesses your site for the first time, all of the static content, all right, from your site is actually cached, right, at that edge location that is closest to your customer. So the next time the customer or somebody else in that region is trying to access the same content, it is not going to go straight to the server. It's just going to pick it up from the cache, all right, and then serve it to, that particular client. It helps to reduce latency that way. All right, and that is why it is actually very, very important for us to understand. And CloudFront actually can connect with your Amazon S3 bucket. It can connect with your load balancer, all right, your Amazon, API gateway and things like that. Okay, so even if you're using a load balancer, all right, you can put a CloudFront in front of the load balancer that will just help to reduce, all right, latency or access to your service as much as possible. Okay, so here we're going to click on create a CloudFront distribution. All right, and then here we're going to choose the origin domain. So the origin domain is, all right, we have this S3 bucket, so we're going to select that. Okay, so that's the origin. The origin here basically means CloudFront is basically fronting for these, all right, origin. Okay, so that's what it means. All right, so we're selecting that. We select that rather, and then here under the origin access, we have to choose a policy. So the origin access is going to be origin access control setting. That's the recommended settings. So here we have some settings here, but we're not going to use that. So we're going to create a new one, and we really don't need to do, all right, anything here actually. So we're just going to say create. Okay, now it says here you must update the S3 bucket policy, right? So CloudFront will provide you with a policy statement after creating the distribution. All right, so here I'm going to come down here. I don't think we need to do anything again. So All right, so we don't need to do anything again here. So I'm just going to scroll down. Now you can enable web application firewall. I mean, in later videos, all right, we're going to see how this works, right? I mean, you've accessed some website before where you can see all this, capture or some of these cloud, what do you call it now? I've forgotten the name of the company now. I'm trying to remember the name of that company. Cloudflare, yeah. So Cloudflare, you've accessed some website before that uses Cloudflare, right? And then they give you this, captcha. They tell you to check the box, and then sometimes they tell you to check, maybe how many cars can you send the picture, all those kind of things. All right, that is something similar to what the web application firewall, all right, does. So it's just more like an extra layer of security over, all right, your CloudFront. I mean, just to protect who is actually accessing your instance or your service, just to be sure that it's actually a real human being that is trying to access your service. But for now, we're going to say do not enable that. I mean, we're going to look at that in later section. Okay. Now here, we can configure an alternate domain, actually, which we're going to do because CloudFront is going to give us this arbitrary endpoint that we really don't want to use. I mean, we want to give our website a name that is nice and sweet. All right, so we're going to configure, all right, this particular, all right, stuff. Okay, so we can add a custom domain here. So, I mean, I can come here, all right, I already have a domain registered. So I'm going to just copy this name. Oops, sorry. I'm just going to copy the name here. All right, and I'm going to put it here. I'm just going to say S3 dots. All right, and I'm going to put that right here. And then for this one, I'm going to use, all right, a SSL, right? I already have my SS certificate here created. So if you want to create your certificate, you can go to certificate, all right, manager, okay, and then open that up. But before you can create a certificate, you must have registered a domain, right? You must have registered a domain. That's the first thing you need to do. So you can register a domain with GoDaddy, or we can register with any domain provider, really. All right, TMD, Hosting, HostGator, all of those domain, or even AWS. Router 3, you can register a domain on Router 3 as well. But here I'm using GoDaddy. So you can register a domain. And once you have a domain registered, you can come to the certificate manager and then click on request. All right. And then here you request a public certificate. You click on next. And then here you have to put your fully qualified domain. So if your domain is, let's say your domain name is sheon.xyz, you just have to say something like this, asterisk dots, and then you say sheon.xyz. Okay. Now the asterisk dot is basically to cater for your subdomains. Okay. Your main domain is sheon.xyz. But sometimes you want to create, let's say, app.sheon.xyz, right? So that asterisk is going to cater for anything that comes behind, all right, the main domain. So all the subdomains that you can create later on, right? The asterisk is going to cater for them. So you can have asterisk dot and then the name of the domain. So that tomorrow, if I want to create, like, let's say invoice.sheon.xyz or app.sheon.xyz or anything basically, all right, .sheon.xyz, then all of those names are actually covered. So here I'm going to choose DNS validation and then I'm going to say request. Now, once I request, if I click on request now, it's going to generate some things for me. All right. So here I can click on view certificate. All right. And it's going to say this is pending validation. And then here I can create a record directly in Route 53 if my domain is actually registered in Route 53. Or I can come here and then I can use this value to validate. So I can go to my domain and then I'll click on add new record. And then here, the record is going to be a CNAME record. I mean, like, as you can see from here, where is that? As you can see from it, it's a CNAME record, right? So this is going to be the name of that record. And then I put the name here like this. The value is going to be, all right, this other one here. So I'll copy that, all right, and then I'll paste that right here. So I can remove the dots, all right, that dot, the last dot there, and then I'll click on save. Now, if the domain is actually correct, I mean, if the domain truly is, all right, if the domain truly is sheon.xyz, right, if I click on save, after like a few minutes, it should return back, all right, and give me something like this, all right, like this one that says what? Issued. Okay, so that's how you can generate a certificate on AWS. But of course, like I said, you must have a domain that you've registered already. So I'm going to delete this. I just use that to show us an example. All right. So here in my CloudFront, I'm going to just basically, all right, choose the certificate that I have created already. all right, because I mean, I want my stuff to be secure, okay, and we have to select that. So here, I don't think there's anything again. So the default root object, right, can be my index.html. So I can say index.html. I mean, the moment you access my CloudFront endpoint, you should have, all right, something to see, more like a landing page as well. So I'm going to say index.html, and I think we've done well. So there's nothing more to do here. All right, I'm just trying to look at that. So there's nothing more to do. And then I'll just say create distribution. All right, so the distribution has been created. And here I can copy the policy that has been generated for me automatically by CloudFront. Now, this policy is what I'm going to now go to my S3 bucket and paste this policy in my S3 bucket policy, and then that will allow access to my S3 without exposing my bucket publicly. So which means anybody that wants to access the content of my bucket will have to go through, all right, CloudFront, all right, as well. And with the policy, it basically locks down access to my bucket to CloudFront, which means my bucket cannot be publicly accessible, all right, except you go through, all right, CloudFront, all right, and that's the only way the bucket becomes publicly, all right, accessible. Okay. Now, even if I close this, you can still, all right, get that, you can get the policy back, right? I'm going to show you where you can get it from. Okay. So let's go back to the bucket. We go to permissions, and then here now I don't need to, all right, turn off this. I mean, I can leave it on, and that's the beauty of using CloudFront. And then here, I basically paste the policy. So if you look at this policy now, it says here, effect is what? Allow. The principal is what? The principal is a service, and the service is what? CloudFront.amazon.aws.com. So that's the service I'm allowing access to. So the action that this service can also do is what? Is S3 get object. So even though I'm connecting through CloudFront, I can still just only what? Get object, which means I can only read the content of the S3 bucket. Right, from the CloudFront, I can't put anything inside of this particular bucket. And here you can see that the resource that this particular service is going to have access to is still my bucket. I mean, this is the ARN of my bucket, and you can see the slash asterisk there, which means it is the content of the bucket that I can access via CloudFront, not the bucket itself as well. But then there's a condition. So the condition here basically means string equals AWS source ARN. So which means even though the service is CloudFront, I mean, there can be other CloudFront distribution, all right, in my account that I've created. But the condition here is basically narrowing the access down to this particular distribution. Okay, so which means if it is not this distribution, all right, it's not going to be accessible. Even though the principal is what? Is the CloudFront service, which means if I have other distribution within my AWS account, right, they can't have access to this bucket except this particular, all right, distribution. I mean, if you go to the CloudFront, for example, you can see the distribution ID right here. Okay, so if it is not this ID, then you won't be able to have access, all right, to this bucket. Okay, so now we can what? We can save the change, and we will be able to access, all right, the all the things that we have in the bucket. So we need to just wait for this guy to wrap up. So now, even if you can't get the policy again, I mean, let's assume you've lost it. You can actually come here to, let me see, security. Is that the place? Nope. Origin. Oops. So let's see. All right. Let's go to behavior, error pages, invalidation, styles, general. All right. So where can you actually get this thing from? Okay. So let me click on edit here. All right. And then if you scroll, where is that? Just 1 minute. You can get it from, I think it should be origin, right? If I'm not mistaken. So if you go to origin, you can click on edit, all right, from the origin section. And then here you can see copy policy. Okay. So you can copy the policy from the origin section and then still make use, all right, of it. Okay. So let's go back to general. It's still deploying. So I'm just going to refresh to see if it is done. So it's still deploying, and this is the alternate domain that we have here. So what I can do basically is that this is a distribution domain name, right? This is the DNS endpoint. So I can copy this DNS endpoint, go to my domain, and then of course it's going to be a CNAME record as well. So I'm going to say S3, and then I'm going to just put the value right here. I mean, you have to remove the HTTPS you have in front. So remove that. All right. And then you can save the record. All right. So the record has been saved here. Okay. So the record has been saved. So now if I copy this, okay, if I copy this and I say S3 dot, okay, this particular URL, I mean, it's going to open up for us. Okay. All right. So the endpoint, the CloudFront distribution is up and running. Right. It's up and running now. So if I copy the distribution name, so let's access through the distribution name first of all. All right, so if I copy it like this, I can see that with the DNS of the CloudFront, I am able, all right, to access my S3 bucket, right? I mean, my bucket is not public now, but then I'm able to access it. And if I go through this URL as well, right, I'm still able, all right, to access. I mean, you can see that it's using what? The HTTPS as well. So if you come here, for example, and look at the certificate you have here, right? The certificate should be, click on view certificate. So the certificate is basically from the CloudFront distribution itself, all right? But if I come here to the one, all right, that I'm using my own DNS, so if I click on that, okay, and then I click here, more information, view certificate, I can see that the certificate is coming from my, all right, certificate manager, which is the devcloud.xyz. Okay, so that is basically how to configure, all right, your bucket to use CloudFront, and with that, you are able to protect, all right, your bucket, from any kind of intrusion. Right? I mean, our bucket is private. The only way we can access our bucket is basically to go through, all right, CloudFront. I mean, that's the only way to access the bucket. Without going through CloudFront, we won't be able to access the bucket. Now, if you come here to the policy and you did the policy, let's play a trick, and I change this particular ID. So let's say, let me just put another thing here, and I click on save, all right, and I come here and I refresh again. Now, it's going to basically work because, I mean, this particular session has been what? Has been cached already. All right, it's been cached already. So if I refresh, it's going to work until the TTL, all right, expires. The time to leave expires. So what I can do is I can come to CloudFront and click on invalidations, and then I can create invalidations here, and I can basically just say, asterisk, right? Or basically just say slash, all right, and then asterisk or something. All right, and I can say create invalidation, okay? And that is in progress. So basically what invalidation would do is basically to just reset the old cache. All right, that's what this invalidation would do for us, right? Reset the old cache, all right, and basically allow you to go back to the origin and fetch, an updated content if there is any content that is actually updated, right? So it's still in progress, basically trying to purge, all right, the cache, so that we can actually go back to the origin and fetch, all right, something new. Because right here now, if I refresh, now you can see that it's saying what? Access denied, because I've invalidated the cache, right? Basically now it can see that, oh, there's something wrong with the policy, all right, access has been denied and all of that. So if I go back to my S3 bucket policy and I edit the policy now and I return this back to what it was before, all right, and I basically save changes and I come back here and I refresh. Now I can access, all right, my S3 bucket. So you can see the beauty of, the policy and going through, all right, the CloudFront distribution. So that makes things a lot easier, all right, for us and all of that. So that is the way to use CloudFront to basically connect to your S3 bucket, all right, without exposing your bucket publicly, all right, to the internet. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you've been able to learn something of value from this session. Thank you so much for your time. And I will see you, all right, on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. All right. See you, all right, on the next one. Bye for now.